Picking up where we left off, the book, once again, is Parapsychology by Richard S. Broughton. The next section is PK to confound the critics. "Aye!" shouted the man as he waved his arm menacingly at the diminutive television. After a few seconds, he relaxed and took a few deep breaths. Abruptly, he tensed and leapt into an aikido stance, directing his intense gaze at the hapless TV. Uttering a breathy "Hun!" he resumed slicing the air with his forearm. Another viewer fed up with network television? Not this time. The person in question, a master of several schools of Oriental martial arts and instructor of martial arts for the U.S. military, is participating in another of Schmidt's PK experiments, a 1988 version. The television had done nothing to provoke such hostility. It just happened that this subject felt that the intense concentration he brought to bear in his martial arts work could actually produce PK effects. All that was on the small 6-inch television screen was a simple display of a block that shuttled from side to side like a pendulum. The task for the subject was either to increase the amplitude of the block's swings, as in making it swing more widely, or decrease the amplitude, making it hover closely to the midpoint. Though the display is new, the PK test behind it is familiar. A binary RNG controls the swings, with zeros decreasing the swing and ones increasing it. The RNG does not control the display directly, though. This is another one of Schmidt's time-displaced PK experiments. In fact, this particular experiment is one of several in a 3-year project currently underway to deal with a problem that has fascinated Schmidt since Sean first took his click tape home almost 2 decades ago. Can parapsychologists deliver impeccable PK evidence directly to its critics? In part, Schmidt's interest in this problem stems from his curious position with respect to parapsychology's critics. We've already seen that Schmidt's ESP research made fraud by the subject extremely unlikely. His regular PK research is designed in much the same way. His general experimental methods have been so careful that parapsychology's regular critics have found little to criticize. And there's an addendum here that says one critic suggested that perhaps subjects in one of Schmidt's early experiments had cut into one of the cables and surreptitiously advanced the counters. Schmidt countered this both on technical grounds and by the fact that he was in the room with the subject most of the time. Back to where we were. Furthermore, the use of pre-recorded targets completely eliminates subject fraud, since the RNG operates before the subjects are even in the building. Furthermore, statistical evaluation is based on the master copies of the data to which the subject never has access. That leaves, of course, only one possibility. Could Schmidt himself be cheating? None of the many researchers who have worked with Schmidt have ever entertained this thought, but it has not been beyond certain critics to suggest it. The British critic C.E.M. Hansel broadly implied it on a television program some years ago. Ordinarily, a researcher has only his reputation to protect him against such insinuations, but Schmidt has actually done better than that. He has adapted his pre-recorded PK methodology to a project aimed at channeling PK evidence to the desk of the critics, to use his own expression. In this type of experiment, the critic, or any outside observer, can actually take part in the experiment in a way that eliminates any possibility of experimenter fraud. The methodology for Schmidt's outside observer experiments is very simple, if you are already used to the idea of time-displaced PK. First, Schmidt prepares pairs of random binary target tapes or computer disks, programmable memory chips, or some other recording medium. The random targets are grouped into runs. One tape, sealed and unobserved, is given to the outside observer for safekeeping. With a copy of the entire experiment already in hand, the outside observer then determines the subject's goals. That is, which runs should have more ones and which runs should have more zeros. The observer has complete control over this phase of the experiment and can designate the runs in any manner he or she chooses. The observer gives the goal assignments to Schmidt, who in turn instructs the subject as to the goal, zeros or ones, for each run. The targets can then be displayed to the subject in any appropriate and interesting manner. Lately, Schmidt has favored the simple pendulum display that our martial arts master was grunting at. Schmidt has completed only one experiment like this so far, a prototype, to see if the method would actually work. And it did. The observers, Robert Morris and Luther Rudolph of Syracuse University, were not really critics. Morris is now Koestler, professor of parapsychology, and Rudolph is a professor of communication engineering at Syracuse. Both, however, were rather skeptical about time-displaced PK and certainly qualified as capable outside observers. The experiment consisted of 10 sections, with the observers specifying the target direction for each section. Schmidt served as his own subject. When the observers examined their tapes, they found that 9 of the 10 sessions reflected the target direction, where 5 is expected by chance. And the overall results indicated a statistically significant effect with odds against chance of better than 100 to 1. As this book goes to press, Schmidt is continuing with his large-scale project to channel significant PK evidence to skeptical outside observers. He is choosing his subjects carefully to maximize the PK effect, and he is choosing his observers for maximum impact among critical scientists. If successful, this project could be one of the most important milestones on the way to scientific acceptance of psi research. The next section is PK and engineering perspective, and you can see we're getting into some of the few glossy pages in the book that have photos included. "What a racket!" I exclaimed to Roger Nelson, Senior Research Associate with the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Program, or PARE, P-E-A-R. As a visitor to their basement laboratory in the School of Engineering of Princeton University, however, I was not commenting on their well-funded research program, nor on the comfortable, if a bit crowded, laboratory to which I was welcomed. Instead, I was referring to the PK test that Nelson had just demonstrated for me. For 12 minutes, 9,000 polystyrene balls clattered their way through an array of nylon pegs mounted in a 6 by 10 foot frame on the wall. Starting from a single point in the center, the balls ricocheted through the array of 330 pegs, finally falling into 19 collecting bins with digital counters below them to register the number of balls in each bin. The final distribution of the balls is the mound-like arrangement known in statistics as a normal, or Gaussian, bell-shaped distribution. Called the random mechanical cascade, this device is simply a larger and much more finely engineered version of a Galton board, a common teaching aid for introductory statistics classes. Probably the most micro-PK research in the world is being done at the PARE Lab of Princeton University. Begun as a pet project of the former dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Science, Robert John, the J-A-H-N, by the way. Robert John, the PARE Lab, has grown to include several substantial psi research programs, the largest of which is PK research. The PARE Lab has a distinctive approach to research, the most obvious characteristic being their belief that really large databases are necessary to draw meaningful conclusions. In keeping with this philosophy, the PARE team has spent years accumulating large numbers of trials on only a few PK tasks conducted according to unvarying protocols. Not surprisingly, engineering concerns are paramount in the PARE work, and considerable attention has been paid to physical parameters of the system targeted for PK effort. Now, before I continue here, actually, let me reach the next section, and then I'll come back and show you the photos, because some of them are very interesting. This is in contrast to Schmidt's belief that PK is goal-oriented and that the physical nature of the target system is not particularly important. Such differing views are healthy, for at this early stage of understanding, parapsychology can best be served by a diversity of approaches. The PAIR team has concentrated its PK work on two devices. One is a true, that is quantum mechanical, random event generator that produces a random chain of positive and negative pulses. Although more elaborate and far more expensive, it is functionally equivalent to a Schmidt-type binary RNG. The other device is the random mechanical cascade that had just assaulted my eardrums. Virtually all of the PK experiments with these two devices conform to a rigid tripolar protocol. Each subject tries for a PK effect in one direction, for example, high numbers on the display, on some runs, and the opposite direction, for example, low numbers, on others. As well as doing baseline runs, where he or she rests and tries to have no effect at all. This three-part protocol is to guard against any possible bias in the physical system that might give the appearance of a genuine PK effect. Both experiments are set up so that all the data from formal testing are automatically stored in computer files. Thus, the PAIR researchers have a virtually unbroken performance record of every subject that ever took part in either experiment. In the REG experiments, a trial consists of 200 binary events. The subject watches a counter that accumulates the binary events, but since the events are generated at the rate of 1,000 per second, the run goes so fast, 1/5 of a second, that the subject simply sees the final number. Chance would predict that these final numbers should average around 100. Subjects do an equal number of runs, trying for scores above 100, labeled as PK plus, scores below 100 as PK negative. I mean, there could be plus and minus or positive and negative. It's just using the symbol. And baseline, or BL, efforts. The aim, of course, must be declared before the trial. The actual experimental protocols control a variety of other parameters, but we need not get into those now. A similar arrangement is used with the cascade device, except here subjects try mentally to push more of the balls to land in the right-hand bins on some trials, in the left-hand bins on others, and for baseline trials to let the balls fall naturally. Electric eyes connected to microprocessors count the balls as they enter the bins, and the counts are displayed below the bins. A run takes about 12 minutes as all the balls clatter through the display. Data collection on these two projects is an ongoing process, so publications from the PAIR researchers tend to be in the nature of progress reports, but the progress is very interesting. In one recent 1987 report of the REG experiments, they had accumulated data from 33 subjects, or operators as the PAIR folks like to call them, who had contributed varying numbers of trials, ranging from a low of around 2,500 trials in each of the three directions to a high of more than 55,000 trials in each direction. Overall, the PAIR lab reported over 250,000 trials in each direction. The PK positive trials averaged a run score of 100.037, and the PK negative trials averaged 99.966. These averages may look pretty close to chance, but the odds against chance producing those directional deviations are more than 5,000 to 1. By way of comparison, the baseline average was 100.004. A 1988 report of ongoing work with the random cascade presents a similar picture. With a total of 25 subjects and 3,393 runs, 1,131 in each direction, the results indicate that the balls are indeed shifted in the direction intended by the subject, with odds against chance to the tune of 10,000 to 1. Curiously, the subjects in the RMC experiment seem to lean a bit to one side. RMC operators are most successful in mentally pushing the balls to the left. When they try to push the balls to the right, the results are close to chance. The PAIR researchers are confident that this striking imbalance in performance is not due to equipment defects, and they suspect it may be a psychological or neurological effect. Whatever the case, PAIR researchers are continuing to scour the accumulating data for clues that might help them understand the PK process. Although the pair PK databases are probably the largest in existence, the Princeton scientists are not in business just to pile up numbers. One of their big goals at present is to see if they can identify operators' individual signatures. For example, success at PK, but not at PK positive in the PK data. In other words, does each operator have a characteristic way of producing a PK effect across different types of tasks that could then be predicted when he or she confronts a new task? Such psychic signatures may not be easy to find. So far, pair researchers have reported encouraging results with way few of the operators who seem to exhibit consistent patterns across different experiments. How successful the pair group will be at this endeavor remains to be seen. Another characteristic of the pair approach is that they make no effort to pre-select subjects on the basis of prior psi ability. This is in direct contrast to the pre-selection strategy used by Schmidt, who feels that unselected subjects who may have no PK ability will just dilute the efforts of those subjects who do. This issue is more than just one of strategy, however, as it relates to the fundamental question that we examined earlier. Does everyone have psi ability, or just a special few? The pair researchers feel strongly that their data reveal no evidence of special subjects, but merely the wide distribution of abilities characteristic of any human endeavor. Some people run faster than others when they sprint, for example. Although interpretations may vary, for the present, the pair database remains one of the few opportunities for attacking that basic question empirically. The next section is luck, PK in daily life. And we'll pick up on that next time. For now, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a close-up on some of these photos and their captions. Sit beside you like you're reading over my shoulder, kind of. Up here at the top, you can see Dr. Louise E. Rhine in a 1959 photograph, consulting some of her letters in a large collection of spontaneous ESP cases. These form the basis of her studies discussed in Chapter 1. Below that, you see the photos of 3 women. Let me switch this camera mode. Now the background is blurry, and the foreground should be a little more clear. That's better. The Fox sisters, left to right, Margareta, Kate, and Leah, played a major role in launching spiritualism as a popular religious movement in the 19th century. At the bottom here, you see a picture that appears to be a man levitating above a group of other men. An artist's conception of one of D.D. Hume's more spectacular demonstrations, levitation in good light before witnesses. Several of Hume's other feats are described on pages 60 through 63. The photo at the top there. J.B. Rhine tests a subject while an assistant observes. Rhine is using the screened touch matching method of testing, one of several methods used in the early days of the Duke University Parapsychology Laboratory. Below that, you see a woman asleep. The subject sleeps in the Maimonade's dream laboratory. Wires from her scalp and eye muscles carry signals that will tell investigators when she's dreaming. During dream periods, another member of the research team will attempt to send her the contents of an art print or similar target through psychic ability. Opposite 6A, that's the person asleep here with the things on her eyes you might recognize. Opposite 6A, a subject relaxes in a Gansfeld experiment at the Psychophysical Research Laboratories, PRL, in Princeton, New Jersey. The halved ping-pong balls covering her eyes, white noise in the earphones, and comfortable chair all help to reduce outside distractions and encourage the subject to focus on inner thoughts and images. During this experiment, an agent in another room will view a film clip several times and try to communicate its contents to the relaxed subject. 6B, below that, the guy with the electronics equipment. PRL researcher George Hansen takes notes while he monitors the equipment that controls the automated Gansfeld ESP tests and records the subject's responses. And at the bottom here, picture 7, is a subject trying her hand with Helmut Schmidt's early ESP test device known as the 4-button machine. Still further, this picture here of the woman with something over her head, focusing intently on another object, Pneumocalagina, wired for EEG monitoring, electroencephalograph monitoring, attempts a PK demonstration while being filmed by Soviet scientists. Below that, members of the Toronto Society for Psychical Research hold one of their regular sittings to conjure up Philip, an imaginary ghost that seemed to facilitate large-scale PK demonstrations. Further below that, while Helmut Schmidt looks on, a subject tries to influence the amplitude of a pendulum-like display on a small TV monitor. The display is governed by one of Schmidt's specially designed random number generators used for PK research. The next page, 2 photos at the top. You can see on the left, at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab at Princeton University, an operator attempts to influence the distribution of balls in the random mechanical cascade device. A better look at that device there on the wall, you can see it. Number 12 on the right, the author, Richard S. Broughton, the man standing up, introduces a Duke University student to his competitive game of chance, a PK experiment that simulates a competition with a student from a rival university. This experiment is part of the author's Applied Luck project at the Institute for Parapsychology. Image 13 here shows a house with a tree in front. The Cheltenham, England house in which the Despard family was repeatedly visited by a ghostly widow. Rosina Despard's detailed investigation of the case made it one of the classic ghost stories of early psychical research. Just a little more in the photo department. The top here, you see Anna Marie, the apparent focus of poltergeist activity in a lawyer's office in Rosenheim, Germany. She stands in the entrance hall under a lamp that was often observed to start swinging violently when she was in the office. Sorry, I had that picture a little bit off. Below that is Julio in the warehouse of a Miami novelty distributor where he was the apparent focus of poltergeist activity. Below that is Hosea Gajusi looks through a badly damaged door in her parents' apartment in Sosnowiec, Poland, that testifies to the havoc wreaked in a 1983 poltergeist episode that centered upon her. Picture here of a man with a cat. Robert Morris records a kitten's activity during OBE, out-of-body experience detection experiments at the Psychical Research Foundation in Durham, North Carolina. Below that you see a drawing and a picture. The picture is of a landing strip by an airport, and the picture's description, the caption is 18A and B, an airport in San Andreas, Colombia, visited by researcher Hal Puthoff as a target in one of SRI's remote viewing trials. At right is the sketch produced by the subject. Trials like this suggest potential applications for remote viewing that have interested government funding sources. So again, that was his prediction, and that was the actual location. There are 3 pictures on this page, just to give you a quick view of each one. The description for them are 3 steps in William Broad's distant mental influence research at the Mind Science Foundation in San Antonio, Texas. At top, Dr. Broad affixes electrodes that will detect changes in the subject's skin resistance that indicate levels of relaxation. While the subject sits just doing nothing, Dr. Broad in another room monitors the polygraph that records the subject's skin resistance levels. During preset intervals, Dr. Broad will attempt to calm the subject by his mental influence alone in this experiment designed to investigate the possibility of true psychic healing. Some of those photos refer to earlier things we've already covered, and some of them refer forward to parts that we haven't touched on yet. And speaking of that, the next section, as I said, is luck, PK in daily life. That's where we'll pick up next time. Once again, the book is Parapsychology by Richard S. Broughton. The Controversial Science. Again, Richard S. Broughton, PhD. And you can get the book on Amazon and other sites. The links to pick up your own copy are in the description below. Thanks for watching. There will be a subscribe button up in one of the corners. If you like this, be sure to tune into the next ones. And that's how far through the book we are, just for reference. Hope you're enjoying it.